Hello, my name is Mehmet Emin Güleçyüz. I'm a PhD candidate in Islamic Studies at the University of Chicago Divinity School. I hold undergraduate degrees in religious studies and in philosophy from Istanbul 29 Mayıs University and a master's degree in Islamicate intellectual history from the Free University of Berlin. My research focuses broadly on medieval and early modern Islamic thought. More specifically, I study metaphysical, epistemological, and theological controversies and interactions between various schools of thought and their representatives, such as the Avicennan Falsafa, Kalam, and philosophical Sufism. Besides, I researched medieval Jewish philosophy and theology in Judeo-Arabic. All these abstract and theoretical themes I try to investigate in light of the historical contexts in which they emerged and manifested, with an interest in the material circumstances, including political, social, and economic factors. I'm writing my PhD dissertation on a rather particular period and region, which is exactly why I will be spending the next academic year as a doctoral fellow at the Research Center for Anatolian Civilizations, ANAMED. My dissertation is about a 14th, 15th century Anatolian thinker, philosopher, theologian named Molla Fenari, how he received and dealt with the multiplicity of approaches and doctrines in Islamic thought, and the role his specific historical context might have played in shaping the way he produced and presented his scholarship. Thus, my project during this fellowship is appropriately titled as Molla Fenari and the Intellectual History of the Late Medieval Anatolia. Molla Fenari lived from the mid-14th century to 1431. He was born in Bursa and educated in the lands of Rome and Egypt before settling in Bursa again and assuming various educational and judiciary tasks in the burgeoning Ottoman state. He witnessed Yıldırım Bayezid's untimely imperial attempts that Timur's Anatolian campaign overturned. The intellectual scene Fenari was born into was pervaded by ideas, debates, and studies devoted to the post-Avicennan development of Hikmah and Kalam, as well as the Sufi panentheism of Ibn al-Arabi and his followers. Scores of books were written on or contained discussions about the approaches and controversies of Kalam, Falsafa or Hikmah, and Sufism, about key theoretical problems alongside other scientific enterprises such as the traditional Islamic religious disciplines like law, hadith, Quranic exegesis, occult sciences and practices, and historiography and biography writing. Fenari engaged in this variety of disciplines and contributed to many of them by authoring books and treatises. He was, first of all, a follower of Ibn Arabi in philosophical mysticism or mystical philosophy through the lenses of Sadr ad-Din al-Qunawi. At the same time, he was a master of Islamic jurisprudence and authored a massive book on legal theory that covers a broad range of subjects, including the theological and epistemological foundations of religious law, linguistics, and hermeneutic apparatuses of scriptural interpretation. During my fellowship at ANAMED, I will survey the manuscripts from the 14th and 15th century Anatolia, Egypt, Levant, and Iran, preserved in libraries in Istanbul and elsewhere in Turkey, as comprehensively as possible. The texts, as well as the informal records on manuscripts, will allow me not only to illustrate Fenari's life, scholarship, intellectual networks, bureaucratic career, and political engagements, but I will also be able to critically approach the material that we find in the later Ottoman historiography in light of such contemporaneous first-hand data. In terms of methodology, my work is grounded in contextualist analysis of a variety of historical sources be they texts written by Fenari on religion, theology, and law, or narrative or informal sources written by other authors. While in my theoretical analyses, I make special effort to consider the non-contextual aspects of Fenari's philosophy in a rather appropriationist manner, such as examining the validity and coherence of his arguments for what can be seen as a panentheistic theology, I situate his scholarship primarily in the late medieval and early modern Anatolian context and the surrounding regions under Mamluk, Timurid, and Byzantine rule. The period under study in my research suffers from the dearth of contemporaneous narrative sources like chronicles. While it has been a practical solution among many historians to rely on the later Ottoman chronicles for the history of this period, it nonetheless suffers from certain anachronisms and distortions and doesn't give a fully accurate picture of what actually happened at the time. My project is thus hoped to shed some much needed and unprecedented light on the late medieval Anatolia through one of the most prominent personalities of the period, and also contribute to the study of philosophy and knowledge in that so far understudied and transformative era of the history of Asia Minor in connection with the Egyptian, Levantine, Iranian, and Byzantine intellectual landscapes. I'm excited to be an ANAMED Fellow in 2022-2023 and look forward to a fruitful academic year.